morning and welcome back to Plan and Craft. I'm Natalie and I'm going to be taking you through a bit of watercolour this morning, and we're going to be finishing off the cards from yesterday. Please mute the computer, Ian. Thank you. Oh dear, can't get the stuff this morning, can we? Right, so I'm going to be using an unmounted stamp from Artisan Designs and I'm going to be popping it onto some cling mount, so I thought that'd be good process for you to kind of see. So I don't waste anything, as you can see. So I'm just going to pop that down on my desk and I'm going to work out the best way it's kind of going to fit on there without overlapping the ends or leaving too much waste behind. And it's got to be interesting. So let's go there. So we've got kind of enough left for a few sentiments and things, but we're rapidly running down the sheet. So next I'm just going to trim it, and you're going to want to do that straight down, so don't try and angle your cuts or anything. Claire says morning. Morning, Claire.
And Zena as well.
Okay.
Say morning to Zena too.
Morning, Zena. Later on I'm going to get in to do this and then try and talk at the same time. It's easier said than done. Okay. So cling mount's good for if you want to use your stamp in a stamp platform. So especially if you have the Tim Holtz one like I do, as it can convert those nice and easily. And I'll just put the scraps down there for a minute. You can always sort those out later. There we go. So I'll put another bit on our backing sheet, and we can do the same with our big piece here too. So how is everybody this morning? Have you all had a good productive morning so far? I think I saw Ian setting up a new email address, but it's not told me yet.
And I've finished the blog post as well. Just sorting out the SEO and readability on it.
Okay, so there's a new blog post going up today, and what have you written a blog back for us today, Ian?
It's a maintenance frequently asked questions.
Okay. So one well worth kind of bookmarking and coming back to.
Yeah. So we have Tracy's watching, and so is Sarah Lou.
Okay, I doubt I'm going to get anything out of that one or that one, so I'm going to chuck those two. And the same for this tiny little piece here.
And Claire says she's wet.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's a little soggy here.
Yeah. It's a good day for the garden, but not a good day for gardening. Ooh, heck. Oh, who left it sticky side up? Right. And pop the rest of those away, and I have a few more stamps to do later, but I won't do that on the screen now. Matter of fact, just because I know that that'll probably all be used up. It'll just go down there as is for now. So, when you have your cling mount, you have like a clear protective sheet on it. So I'm just going to take that off. And you put it to one side and keep it. Ideally you want to laminate some card and pop it on that. So, what we need to do next is we need to change around our lid. So with your Tim Holtz platform, you want to make sure that the side you are using is the side that is legible. So we have rubber here. I'm going to pop it into my platform. I haven't got a lot of room today because I also want to keep all my other bits from yesterday. So I'm going to kind of put that not too close to the edge of my platform and place it down. Now I need the watercolour panel that you cut yesterday, or the stamping colour panel rather. No, not that one. Where did you put it in?
It's all up there, it's all there. Probably at the bottom because it was the first one I cut.
Okay, so it's hiding there. So that's the piece we want, just the centre panel.
And your mum's joining us now.
Hi Mum!
And also Julia.
Hi Julia. So, let's just check for alignment, so I need to go a little bit further under. Now, as it stands, we have very little space that we can use to actually kind of use our magnets to stick down. So I think what I'm going to end up using instead is a little bit of purple tape and then stick the magnets to that to kind of extend where I'm going. So you can always move your stamp if need be afterwards, but I'm just going to tape along here, and I'm going to keep it parallel to that edge just in case it does go off, so at least it looks like it's supposed to be like that. And then you can pop the magnet. So the magnet's there to kind of hold your tape in place, and the tape's there to hold your card in place.
Tracy's asked if you could use my jig for this sort of stuff as well.
You could use a jig, but it needs to be slightly different to the one that we use for your scan and cut. So I might just get Ian to do a few bits and pieces for that too while he's at it, you know.
Technically you could use the 6x4 one for that.
Yeah.
Could use the smaller one.
You could almost do with like backing it with some low tack adhesive then. I didn't tear that quite long enough, so put that to one side from something else. A bit longer, there we go. Just because you need it to get under the magnets.
We could do with then some repositional like tape.
Or drop a plug up in that. An older one. So it's a lower tap one, yeah. There's a use for an old arty sticks if ever there was one. So, because our stamp isn't totally symmetrical, because nature isn't,
And then this is morning as well.
position it to the best of fit rather than level. Okay.
Morning Linda, I'll say, because now you know print. What you lost?
There we go.
You should do it now.
I should really. So, I'm going to use some Jane Davenport squid ink for this one. It's a bit stronger than what I'd usually use for watercolouring with, but it doesn't smudge. It sets pretty quickly too. So. And that's not bad for first impression, it's just the tip of that leaf there and the tip of that flower. So if I just pop a little bit more ink just on those two places. There we go, that's not bad at all. So I'll just shut that off for a minute while I put the lid back on my ink pad. And then we can move our magnets off. And the other thing that I love to do with my stamp platform is I can just take the lid off.
I'll check for you. I'm not sure on that one.
What's that?
The Artistic's fabric max also for the DX, or if it's...
Yeah. I would check because of the dots being different. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my meadow that I was using for my leaf colours yesterday. And I'm going to mix them up ready. So you want your paint to be kind of fairly wet and flowy. And while we're mixing our colours, you see our ink is still drying a bit. Then I'm going to go to my next little channel and I'm going to put in some of the green grey, which will be our shadow colour. And separately we can even put in, let's go for some steel blue. So this will add a good variation to the tone of our leaves.
I would say not.
If that's something particularly you were looking for, we can always speak to Lee and just see if that's possible. Okay, so you can see our leaves have gone slightly off our edge, but I don't mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to kind of drop in a background as well. So we have some dark indigo that we were using yesterday. So remember how I say you never waste any of your paint, so don't clean your palette because a bit of water soon refreshes back. So I'm going to go with a little bit more because we can go a bit darker with this one to make our flower pop a bit.
I would say don't, Tracy. If you ordered one, I'll give Lee a call and see if I can get him to do you a DX one for a fabric. It might just be a case of changing what he prints it on, so I don't know if he can get the high tack for the...
Okay, so I've mixed my colours and this should be pretty much dry enough to paint. Now remember at the moment this is kind of upside down, so you kind of want your shading to be upside down too.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that for you, Tracy.
So I'm just going to start fairly lightly into the shaded area, and then we can always blend this out with a water brush. So same way that we were doing that yesterday.
I'll drop in a text just to ask him to give me a call when he gets back.
Yeah. Just in case he sends it out first, because that'd be long one to go
last night, so.
Okay. So I'm just going to drop in a bit more colour in this end, and because we've kind of wet our area, it's going to blend a lot more now. And right in there is where your darkest colour is going to be, so I'm just going to go back to the palette and just pick up a little bit neat and just drop it in there. And again, we can just blend that out if need be. I'm going to get back into my paler mix and pick up a bit more colour. So remember how I was saying that if you're doing a flower or something with sharp edges, you kind of want to go every other panel. So you notice I've kind of left it white on that very far edge because we don't want to pull that colour in. This one should be okay to do in here too. Okay, and we're going to move to this petal here. So So the stamp I'm using is from Keely's Garden.
From Artisan Designs.
Yeah. Do you want the sleeve so you can put the details up in, or are you okay?
I'll find it.
Okay. So again, I'm going to go around this area here. Now we have a few lines suggesting the shading. So if you have like a line like this, I'm just going to draw up a little bit of that colour into there, so you can start building that form. And then we can just run some water between these two lines and lip blend. So the card I'm using is just a stamping card, it's not a watercolour card today, so you don't want to get it too wet, but it will take some water. You can see the colours starting to go a bit pale again, so we can always just add in a bit more dark right in there. Again, we'll blend that out.
It's the Dahlia, isn't it? Or is it Rose?
Rose. Okay, so at the moment I'm trying to leave the petals that are kind of facing the sunlight a bit paler, just so that we get that feeling of them running back. So we'll do that petal in there in a minute.
Yeah, the link that's just gone up is for the stamp if anybody is interested.
There we go, so I'm just going to blend that bit out there, and then we've got a bit more shading going into this corner, so I can just drop in a little bit of colour there. So now that we've kind of worked our way into the centre, we can start at the outside and start working our way back in again. So with the next set of petals that we haven't done yet. So this one's underneath, so it needs a bit more colour in it, just to kind of make it pop back. Going to pick up a bit more of that dark colour just in there. And then go back to our paler red. Very quiet out there today.
Must be the weather.
I was meaning online.
No, we're doing alright.
So again, we've got a ruffle with a petal there, so we'll take it there. And I'm just going to take it underneath that section there and then blend from there. If you're finding that you're getting a bit too much colour moving, you can just clean your brush on a little sponge or bamboo sheet just to kind of get the pigment out. And I'm just going to drop that just because it's a little bit better than I would like on this card. So just because we've got this petal kind of kinking here, I'm just going to put in a little bit more colour just there so we get more of a feel of the form of the petal. Okay. Just going to pre-wet that section because I'm just going to drop the shading in and just let it kind of do its own thing for that one. So we only really want light colours right on these bits now. Now, if we use the drop-in techniques, and it'll blend out with its own accord, so you can just go, well, I'll just have a bit there where the stamp suggests that there's some shading, and a bit more just in that top section there. Okay, and just finally on this big section here, just going to blend the tiniest amount of pigment just to give that petal a little bit of form. There we go. So while that's drying, we're now going to move on to the leaves. So I'm going to go in with the meadow first of all. Now I'm going to leave just a few little white areas on this one, and I'm going to pick up some of the green grey, and I'm going to drop this in right up against the rose. That's going to do like your shadow. Now the colours will dry back a lot paler than this, so that's something that you need to bear in mind when you're painting, is that you want to build up layer by layer by layer. So I'm just going to clean my brush again. I'm going to go back to the meadow. I'm just going to kind of rough out a sort of centre kind of shape. Now from there I'm going to decide where my light's going to go. So you're probably going to get more light on that top edge than this bottom edge, so you can go and kind of slide down there, and we can even drop in a little bit more colour if we're thinking it's a bit too pale. Now the trick is, in this weather you need to work fairly quickly, just because of the speed that your paint will dry. Okay, you can always add another glaze over the top if you want to, once it's dry. So kind of concentrate on getting your blending. So just to change it up a bit. Started off a bit green grey, and now I'm going to drop in some of the meadow. And again, I'm going to want that to kind of extend, so I'm going to use my water brush just down there so we don't get any true white areas. Now where you've got an image that's going off your tape, try and make sure that you have some colour that kind of goes up against that edge too, otherwise you're going to end up with an outline that looks like it's cut off rather than like you intended to do that. And I'm just popping a little bit more water just on this edge to kind of draw the colour out, especially here where we've got it joining another section. Okay, so back to the meadow. And a bit more of the green grey. And this time I'm going to also bring in a bit of the steel blue because we're coming underneath our rose. So it needs that extra depth, and I'm just going to bring that down through the petal. Okay, and go back to our water brush. We're just going to drag a little bit out, and you can almost freaking just a little bit that meadow just to warm that colour back up. And I'm just going to bring in a bit of that steel blue colour just around there as well. And we can blend that out. There we go. So I'm just going to twist my board round.
So Ruth says she's ordered hers, she's waiting for them to arrive. The mat.
Cool. Just going to put a bit more of that meadow neat in that section there. So you're not going to get much of a highlight on this petal, just because of where it is. So I'm just going to blend that very far edge with just a touch of water. And then we can go back to our steel blue and we can drop some right in that top section there. A bit more right down there, like so. Going to move again, as you do. So don't be afraid to move your artwork to suit you rather than trying to twist round, because the last thing you want to do is injure yourself while doing this. So if you're having to twist your wrist in any way. So with this one, it's more or less pointing up towards our light source. So I'm going to clean my water brush, give it a good blot. I'm going to pull this colour out. So you can still keep your kind of little sections of colour that you did, but you just want to make sure that you're not getting too dark by comparison. Okay, and this next one I'm going to wet first, because this one is going to be lighter again, so I'm going to use the water to my benefit, and I'm going to draw the colour up through the veins and then let it just fade. So just because we've got a little bit of a shadow would form there, I'm just going to move it with my brush to where I want it. If it starts to fall too much, you can always just get the cloth and dab it in the lightest areas rather than necessarily losing too much colour. Okay. just going to follow the edge of this petal here. And round the edge of our petal here too. And a little bit just underneath where this leaf curls over. So you're kind of getting that form. Now at this point I'm just going to go back to these last two petals while we give our leaves time to dry. So give your brush a good clean and your water brush. Any questions?
Nothing at the moment. Excuse me. Nothing at the moment.
There we go. So I'm just going to wet this one first because again this petal's probably one of the palest on your rose, even though it goes the deepest, so you want your deep colour kind of to come out from around there and just in there, but by the time it gets out to the outer edges it's nice and pale. So if you're getting a bit too much of a line, just blend it with your water brush. And there we go. So I'm just going to give that a quick wash from my dryer. Now for the detail in the middle, I'm going to use my little script liner or rigger. Just going to draw it through my paint, and we can get really detailed with this centre section. So if you wanted to for this section you could have done like a base coat, but I find it's just easier to just go from scratch and go from the actual base image. So with the dark red you're kind of just carving out where the petals are. Because I need a little bit of a blending just there to happen in the larger area. I'm just going to add a little drop of water, and there's a little bit more detail in there, so I'll just add that. And then And if you really want to learn about shading flowers, one of the best exercises you can do is using a program like Procreate or Photoshop or Painter. Actually try and paint a flower over the top of a photograph, and the shade will happen in different places to what you think it will. So it's quite a good one for giving you a bit of a learning curve. So just because That will need a little extra colour. I'll just add it with my rigger. Same in there. So we can go in and do some good old bits of detail. If you do have any questions, don't be afraid to pop them in the comments. Unless of course you've all gone to sleep. Okay, so I'm just going to pop a little bit more in there so that our highlighted areas are going to start now getting a bit of colour, just to try and get them to go with the faults. A little darker area that will go in there. Just going to get a bit more water on my brush. I'll try and pick up some almost neat red on my brush, just so I can get right into the nooks and crannies. The number 10 round brush is brilliant for doing areas and brush strokes, but sometimes it does miss the fiddlier things, so it's always a good idea to come back in with a little rigger just to kind of catch the bits that the brushing miss. The other thing to watch out for is starting to fiddle too much. When you're using a detail brush, it's easy to do. Okay. So now at this point we can kind of clean our brushes again. Be very gentle when wiping your rigger. Your number 10, however, can take a bit of abuse. I'm going to drop in some meadow just down by the rose, a little bit just there, and then along here, so starting to run out a bit of pigment, so just go for a bit more and blend it out. Over here it's going to be a bit darker, just because your light's kind of coming this way. And if it helps, you can always make yourself a little note where your light source is.
I don't think you missed too much, Tracy.
Did you drop off?
You should hand back, you don't miss anything.
So one last thing before we're finished is to just give it a quick dry, and then we can do our background and then we can move on.
Do 2 o'clock stream on the paper pieces.
Huh? Oh, God blimey. That took longer than expected. Okay, so I'll do the paper piecing this afternoon then. Even though that bit probably won't take so long, but let's go.
She said no, she had stuff to do. She didn't fall asleep.
Okay. So this is one occasion where actually you become very glad that you've kind of got bits chopped off, because trying to keep the background wet enough to blend in the watercolours on a day like today is actually quite difficult. Even though it doesn't feel that warm, it obviously we can drop in a bit more of that colour up here too. And again, I'm going to go back to my dark indigo. So you want to make sure that your colour's kind of darker around the base of your flower, just so you get a feeling of a shadow. And up on this edge we can be a bit lighter, we don't have to be quite so dark. So you still want to make sure that you have some pigment in. And then when it starts to get too pale, we can drop in a little more in the kind of nooks and crannies. Just lifted a bit there, but never mind. And put a little bit more just in that top corner. There we go. And I think with that I'm almost happy. Just do a little bit touch up with the rig around the petal, just where it's really detailed. What's that?
Just me.
Just you what?
Struggling today.
Huh?
Struggling.
Struggling?
Mm.
Why are you struggling? Struggling to stay awake or?
Mm.
That was me going to say you could do the paper piecing later. Okay, so I'm just going right underneath the petal. And this stamp's quite forgiving anyway because it is quite wibbly wobbly. There you go, technical term that. Wibbly wobbly. And blend that bit out with a bit of water, just so it's not too hard a line. Okay. So who else have we got today then? Yeah.
What streams?
Yeah.
Should have Lou at 12. That's Lou with us. Doing a mixed media.
I have no idea.
No idea.
I haven't seen her post today actually.
No. So Lou's on at 12. You've got Pete at 12:30 with his giveaway. You may have a Leslie from Chocolate Baroque at 1:30. Not sure if she's on today or not. Again, not seeing a post from her today. And then we'll be back at 2 to do some paper placing.
Yeah, paper piecing.
Piecing, sorry. Placing,
Yeah.
piecing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then given how long that takes might make a difference as to whether that continues on to Monday, because we are not streaming tomorrow.
No, we're not streaming tomorrow because I have somebody coming to collect the van, but we don't know what time, so I can't give a.
We can't guarantee a time, so
Can't guarantee you.
we may still stream, but it won't be a set time.
Yeah.
Depends on how well I do in my work.
Tracy says that's lovely, and Linda says really lovely Nat, thank you. It's so relaxing watching you.
Okay, so I'm just peeling off my
Apparently
tape.
Lou's still at her Chandler, so she may not be on today.
Alright, okay. So you can see where the tape just lifted a little bit, but that's fine. Just adds to the look. So there you go. So you've got your white edges, and then if I grab a frame quick, if I can, there we go. If I put that one in there, you can start to see where we're heading. Okay. So, would you like me to carry on doing like the watercolour streams and maybe some alcohol markers and maybe even some acrylic paint?
So this is beautiful.
Yay! So just let us know in the comments if you're enjoying the painting, or if you want me to get back to scan and cut eventually. Or if you'd like me to show you something totally different. Because we have quite a wide range of things here, don't we?
Linda says yes please, alcohol, ink stuff would be good to see. Your mum says yes please.
Okay. can do that, can't we?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, the scan and cut is just a tool. It's not the be all and end all. So I tend to use it in little bits throughout projects, don't I, rather than doing a scan and cut project. Well, I've seen some amazing projects done that are entirely scan and cut. Quite often I tend to mix and match. Cool. So in which case then, I'll see you at 2 when we'll put all this together. I might even do the other card as well. We did with the butterflies from the other day because I haven't done that one yet.
We haven't finished off.
Yeah. So we'll do a big putting it all together section.
Finishing off session.
Yeah. Yeah. Ready for a fresh start next week. Now, next week...
Today in comments reacting yesterday, or reaching yesterday.
Huh? What's that?
There's a huge delay in comments reaching yesterday apparently.
Oh.
Hmm.
That's a bit naff.
Yeah. They said it's good to see how it works in with different projects. So that's it. And Julia's asked if we've done a video on digital images and colouring them.
Ooh. I did a little bit, didn't I, that gets kind of covered in the cute characters one, in the second part of that one. But I can easily do another Digistamp one. So yeah, I can do a Digistamp one. I quite happily do that. And then next week I'm going to mention the dreaded C word, just because I know everybody else is starting to bring out their new releases and things, so it's good to get you kind of inspired and seeing what sort of thing you might like to get, so you don't get a whole load of Christmas stuff that sits there and does nothing. Because I'm the first person to put my hand up and say I don't buy Christmas stuff as a rule because you never get it used. So the only thing we bought last Christmas was a thing of washi tape and some stickers, wasn't it? And I've still got loads of them left.
You still haven't used them?
Yeah. Well, we ended using most of it on the foiling. Such is my love of doing Christmas cards.
So on that note?
On that note, I'll see you at 2 for a big putting together section.
Thanks very much and bye.
Bye.
Don't know why I made